On the front line of the North Korea crisis, residents of GUAM have staged a peace rally. Tensions between Pyongyang and Washington surged last week after the North said it was finalizing plans to launch 4 intermediate-range missiles towards waters off the U.S. Pacific territory.
This is a friendly gathering. A lot of people are stressed out. They got a lot of things on their mind, North Korea most especially, and the bombs that might potentially hit us, and to kind of unify the community and bring them out here and to think about something else instead of getting bombed.
The people here are peace-loving people, and we don't want war here. We don't want to harm anyone in North Korea, and we don't want harm to come to us or anywhere else in the world. And it's time that our leaders think about peace and think about ways to promote peace.
But President Trump's talk is far from peaceful, with warnings of fire and fury, and that the U.S. military is locked and loaded if North Korea acts unwisely. This amid concern that Kim Jong-un is close to achieving his goal of putting the mainland U.S. within range of a nuclear weapon.
Amid the heightened tensions on the peninsula, the nation's defense minister briefed lawmakers on the security situation. The chief reassured Parliament the possibility of an attack on U.S. soil is very low. Kim Min-ji shares with us his remarks.
North Korea is unlikely to turn its threats into action. That's according to South Korea's Defense Minister Song Young-moo, who said in a parliamentary briefing on Monday that top military officials in Seoul and Washington share that view. Last week, Pyongyang said it is considering striking areas around GUAM using intermediate-range missiles. That threat followed President Trump's warning that the regime will be met with fire and fury should it continue its threats.
North Korea's ludicrous remarks not only jeopardize security on the Korean peninsula, but also hurt regional peace and stability. If North Korea continues its provocations, it will face stern actions from both South Korea and the United States. Seoul and Washington are closely cooperating and monitoring all developments in Pyongyang, and are preparing to take action instantly if a provocation is detected.
Minister Song went on to say that although it seems North Korea has developed missiles capable of reaching GUAM, it is yet to successfully master re-entry technology or miniaturize a warhead. He said that North Korea's latest threats are rather seen as a means of bolstering solidarity within the regime, as well as a protest against the latest UN sanctions and the upcoming joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington. In light of growing threats and provocations, Song said his ministry plans to speed up the deployment of the THAAD missile defense system. Recent tests showed levels of electromagnetic radiation and noise from the THAAD system were within legal limits. The minister also said the president has requested that the South Korean military take any measures necessary to address Pyongyang's threats, as well as raise awareness of the need for the THAAD among people living near the site.
The short answer, Shannon, is talk is talk. Guam has been through this before, the belligerent threats from North Korea because of the B-1 bombers that are based here that Kim Jong-un sees as an invasion force. Secondly, the economy is based on tourism, so they didn't want to hit the panic button unnecessarily. Third, Guam is in Typhoon Alley. The houses here are built like bricks to withstand very, very high winds and a lot of other things. And then finally, the island really is like a military fortress. It is defended by a ring of anti-missile systems from the U.S., so most islanders feel safe.
Just because you're threatening me or the island doesn't mean we need to raise the panic button or, press the backing button and raise the level. Well, something credible. At this point, he is not credible.
So Guam is basically selling two things. One, paradise, the beaches, the sunshine, the scuba diving, and its strategic location. So together, it's his job to keep those in balance. Shannon?
All right, so not that you have any downtime, but give us a report what you're seeing on the beaches and tourism. What's going on there?
Tourism is actually up 7% over last year, so far this through half of August. And that's despite, of course, you're hearing all this talk about the brink of war. We call it vacationing in the crosshairs, if you will. So why is that? Well, number one, 90% of the tourists here are coming from Japan and South Korea, and they've already been living under the dark shadow of North Korea and the kind of belligerent behavior they have from their neighbor. And secondly, you know, it's not to say that Guamanians here were not unconcerned when a foreign leader threatens to drop, 4 ballistic missiles in your backyard, which of course would devastate the economy and the treasured marine ecology.
Obviously, it's something we need to pay attention to. If they're serious and if Trump gets serious and it turns into something, then we'll have some big issues out here.
Once the corals break, they take years, decades, even hundreds of years to build back up. And it's not just bad for the corals, we also have fish that live in those coral reefs. If we don't have our corals, we're not going to have fish, and that's going to bring down our tourism industry.
One thing that could reignite the rhetorical war, if you will, number one, there is a celebration today in North Korea about the liberation from Japanese occupation, and finally, that upcoming joint military exercises in South Korea with the United States that Kim has said he feels that is a provocative behavior. Back to you.
All right, William Longinus, live for us in Guam. Thank you.
To have a viable diplomatic solution. It would have to involve certainly something to remove the current threat of a DPRK intercontinental ballistic missile targeting the United States. It's going to, on the other side, certainly have to involve some sort of political accommodation, a change in our relationship with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's always been the key to the negotiations with the North Koreans. There has to be a political change. Now, the way the North Koreans define that is to remove the state of hostility. But then what they include under that are things that are well beyond what the United States could accept. So we have to find some way to reach a political accommodation with North Korea, while they have to find some way to walk away from this nuclear component.
What could be a breakaway for two sides? We know talks made some breakthrough in 1994 when Bill Clinton was president, the agreed framework, but later President George Bush made this axis of evil comment that really offended some North Koreans, and the regime walked away from talks, and now we have this strategic patience, and now to President Trump's presidency. So what could be a breakthrough for President Trump and Kim Jong-un?
That's going to be a remarkable achievement if it can be brought about. It seems to me that you're going to need to have a change of mentality on both sides. And that may mean we have to have this war of words, and we have to have this crisis atmosphere, because both sides have to stop and say where we're going is not going to work. A breakthrough will involve, at some point, a peace treaty, a final end to the Korean War. That will be a component of it. A breakthrough would certainly include something that was part of the 1994 agreement, which is the eventual acceptance of normal diplomatic relations between the North and the United States. But we are far from that today. So this is it'd be a tough job for Secretary Tillerson.
Very quickly, do you think President Trump and his administration has the political capital to make this happen? We know there's this U.S. Congress, the Pentagon, the intelligence community. Does President Trump have the political capital?
I suppose if he were, I would say on this issue, yes. One thing I would note, we would be having a difficult moment right now if there were a President Clinton in the office. They, too, believe that an ICBM by the DPRK would be unacceptable to us. So we would be in a difficult moment today if the election had gone the other way. That means, on the other hand, there's a rather bipartisan consensus that if this issue could be solved some way diplomatically, I think you'd get buy-in from it. So it's doable politically. Whether it's doable diplomatically is another question.
It could be easier for a Republican administration to solve international.
I think we're not closer to war than a week ago, but we are closer to war than we were a decade ago. And this has been a problem that we've procrastinated on for a long period of time. And now it's coming to a head where the threat from North Korea, not only to the United States, but to the world, is very, very clear.
And it seems many people have taken the bait. Google searches in the US for how to survive a nuclear attack are outtrending classics like how to get rich and how to be happy. And the media is certainly helping to stir things up.
People begin weighing their disaster plans.
Nuclear warhead, it could land in Hawaii in 20 minutes.
This is an existential threat to the United States.
Additional information on radiation from a potential nuclear blast.
So where does that leave us now? Well, only a few days into Trump's verbal spat with Kim Jong-un, a survey showed almost 80% of Americans believe North Korea is capable of launching a missile that could hit the U.S. And that's despite many experts saying Pyongyang's weapons are not sophisticated enough to achieve that. RT's Daniel Hawkins has been taking a look at who actually benefits from all this scaremongering.
The higher the tension, the hotter the rhetoric. We've certainly had no shortage of that in recent days. But who stands to gain from this war of words? Well, Donald Trump, for one. The US president has kept busy sounding military drums against North Korea.
They will be met with fire and fury.
It's not a dare, it's a statement.
Maybe it wasn't tough enough.
And it's tough talk like this that brought him newly found popularity. According to one poll, Trump's approval ratings jumped to 45% on the back of those comments. Next on the list, the North Korean army. Pyongyang claims a whopping 3.5 million volunteers have signed up for the country's military, all because of the recent escalation. If true, definitely a win for Kim Jong-un and his army recruiters. Now moving on to Guam, the US territory located closest to North Korea. People there have already received guidelines on what to do when they see a mushroom cloud. But there's an unexpected cause for celebration, because apparently all the hype will actually do the island good.
You're going to be taken care of. You become, Eddie, I have to tell you, you become extremely famous. All over the world, they're talking about Guam, and they're talking about you, and I think you're going to get tourism. I can say this, your tourism, you're going to go up in like 10-fold.
And where there's war, or even the talk of one, there's always big money. And this time, it's 10 points for the bunker business. Sales are apparently going through the roof on the wave of apocalypse hysteria.
Now with military tensions running high, bomb shelters are, alas, making a comeback.
Clyde Scott helps people who are really rich and really freaked out. His clientele has changed from people afraid Obama would take their property to those afraid Trump will start a nuclear war.
All this drama with North Korea, it's paying off in a big way for this company. Take a look at what they are selling here. These are massive bomb shelters.
And one such company is even inviting people to form an entire survival community. If all that nuclear Armageddon talk has you scared for your life, you can move to one of these bunkers scattered around a whopping 20 square kilometers in South Dakota. Yet another firm says they're completely sold out.
Our inventory did sell out, but we have the capacity to manufacture at least 1,000 shelters a year and supply many countries around the world.
So, plenty of point scoring on the back of knee-jerk panic. But while the big bosses are reaping the rewards, the large communities of people are left losing sleep over the fear of yet another conflict.
Well, activist Luyan Bavakwa from Guam says Trump's rhetoric betrays the lack of genuine U.S. concern for the island.
Guam is used by the United States, it defends the United States, but it's not really the United States. If Kim Jong-un and the North Koreans were to say that we are going to target off the coast of California, or we're going to target off the coast of Washington State, or even target off the coast of Hawaii, there would be a very different response from the United States, because you are directly threatening the homeland. But what is the purpose of a territory or a colony? The purpose of a colony is that you exploit it when things are good, and if things get ugly, you cut it loose. The fact that Trump speaks so recklessly and sort of impulsively only helps to underscore a lot of those anxious tensions.